Good evening, traveler. You've wandered into myth-taken dreams, a place where timelines tangle, truths wobble, and bedtime stories rewrite history just enough to make it magical. Each tale unfolds from a library that never existed, where historians whisper with poets and facts arrive fashionably late. Tonight, we unspool another tale from the flickering archive because bedtime deserves a version of history that knows how to lie charmingly. So fluff your pillow, turn down the logic, and lean into the lore. Once upon a time, in a land before time, which was quite handy since time hadn't been invented yet, the earth was a very lonely place. There were mountains, oceans, volcanoes, and the occasional confused asteroid, but there was no one around to appreciate it. No trees, no animals, not even a single nudge of life. It was like a grand banquet hall filled with all the ingredients for a great feast, but no one had shown up to cook, or even to eat the food, for that matter. Now, this lack of life wasn't due to any lack of trying on Earth's part. Oh no, Earth had been doing its best to create the right conditions. It had water, because comets had been kind enough to bring it. It had a nice atmosphere, thanks to a lot of gas that was trying really hard to be useful. And it had land, which was, of course, a little hot, but it was still a solid effort. But no matter how much Earth tried to set up the perfect environment, life just wasn't appearing. There was nothing to enjoy the sunsets, nothing to frolic in the oceans, and nothing to pick up seashells and put them on the windowsill of a cave somewhere. But Earth, being a determined planet with a touch of stubbornness naturally, wasn't going to give up. Earth thought to itself, I'll just have to do it myself. And so Earth did. It took a deep breath, well, as deep a breath as a planet can manage, and said, okay, let's see. Water, check. Atmosphere, check. Some good old volcanic energy. Ah, yes, the spark of life. Now, this is where things get a little tricky, because life doesn't just pop up like toast in a toaster. No, it needed a special ingredient, something that would cause the atoms to stop being so stodgy and start getting creative, something like, well, lightning. And that's when Earth decided to throw a big, dramatic party in the sky. One day, Earth gathered up a bunch of clouds, made them very angry, and told them to make a huge spark. So they did. And boom, lightning cracked across the sky, hitting the oceans with a flash so bright it could probably be seen by confused jellyfish in the next ocean over. The lightning zapped into the water, and that's when it happened. Magic. Not the kind with wands or elves or even clever rabbits, but the kind of magic that makes things come together in new, exciting ways. And so, out of the watery soup, which was a bit like a cosmic stew, except you probably wouldn't want to taste it, the first molecules of life began to form. At first, it was nothing much, just a few tiny little bits of goo, like the start of a very underwhelming jelly. But that goo had a secret. It liked to stick together. It liked to join up with other goo, and it had a bit of a competitive streak. It wanted to be the best goo there ever was, the goo that could grow and divide and multiply until there was enough goo to fill the whole ocean. And that's exactly what happened. Eventually, after a very long time, the goo turned into things that were slightly more exciting than just goo. They were simple, just little single cells floating around, but these cells were smart. They learned things. They learned how to eat, though it wasn't exactly five-star dining. Think more like scavenging in a dark alley, and they learned how to make more of themselves. They didn't even need to go to school to figure it out. But Earth was still feeling a little bit lonely. These cells, while clever, weren't quite what Earth had in mind. Sure, they were multiplying, but there was no one to enjoy the sunsets, no one to dance in the rain, and definitely no one who could explain how to make soup out of seaweed. So Earth thought, right, that's it. I'll have to do more than just simple cells. I'll give them legs, and heads, and brains. And so, over the course of millions of years, because Earth liked to take its time with these things, The simple cells turned into more complex things. They figured out how to form bodies, some of them with fins to swim, some with legs to walk, and some that were very, very good at inventing excuses to stay inside and read books. These life forms didn't just survive anymore, they started to thrive. They ate the plants, or got eaten by the plants, or occasionally had very dramatic misunderstandings with each other about territory. And as Earth watched this unfold, it decided that life was pretty good after all. There were now creatures that could appreciate the beauty of a sunrise, creatures that could swim in the oceans and breathe the air, and even creatures who would eventually figure out how to invent pizza and complain about Mondays. So Earth smiled. If a planet can smile, and it most definitely can. Life, it said, is a bit of a work in progress, but I think I've done a good job. And that is how life was born. With a bit of lightning, some very stubborn molecules, and a planet that didn't give up, even when it was just a giant ball of rock and dust trying to figure out how to throw a proper party. The end, or more accurately, the beginning, again.